want to know.
Republican Representative and Adam Kinzinger is a military veteran, serves with the Air Force National Guard. Congressman, thanks for being here. I'm wondering what you make of that discussion. I mean, I found it fascinating to hear General Milley talk in that way, and clearly, as he's a student of history, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating, actually, hearing it's the first time I'd kind of gotten top lines of what was said, and I think what he's showing is a couple of things. Number one, they want military officers to be studied up on all these issues. It doesn't, when I heard that, I'm like, I don't think he was saying we need to adopt, critical race theory. I think he's saying we need to understand what it's about. I think there is value in understanding different viewpoints. Now, getting into the issue of whether to implement this in military teaching is something different. But I think the bottom line is everything that led to that is this new kind of, well, it's not really new, but it's really accelerated, just trying to stoke outrage and division. And I think you saw that with the questions were intended to basically stoke outrage and division. And I wish people would depoliticize the military. Its job is to defeat our enemies or be willing to do that. That's the job of the military. If we want to debate all these other issues, we can debate them, but I think the military just needs to go out and do what it does. And you have so many on, I guess on both sides, but I can be particularly critical of my side as a Republican, that are just out trying to stoke darkness, fear, division over and over because it gets you retweets, it gets you likes, you might be able to raise some money, but it's really destructive to this country.
It's also interesting, I mean, I grew up in the age of Ronald Reagan, when I was a kid and in college, to hear Republicans suddenly going after the military from in a way that you would expect. In the past, it was, very far left or progressives going after the military on subjects. It's kind of just an interesting juxtaposition, particularly from someone like Matt Gaetz, who does not exactly have a record of distinguished service in any armed forces or, frankly, in the halls of Congress.
Yeah, so you're right. It's exactly what, people on my side used to be critical of the Democrats doing, but it's just now by a different name. They just picked a different issue. And again, whether it's January 6th, that was a quick opportunity to politicize the military. But the reality is the military needs to be left out. It is the last institution in Washington, D.C., Anderson, or I guess in the whole country, really, when you talk about the government, that has the faith of both parties, that has bipartisan support. I mean, even the FBI is political now in people's minds. Even the CIA is political in people's minds. Obviously, Congress is, and every institution. The military is the one we need not to be in. When we continually try to stoke anger, I think, in these questions or these statements, it's not beneficial to the defense of this country or to those that have signed the dotted line to serve and protect and don't want to spend their time being super concerned with, what our latest outrage is here.
You've been working on something, pushing very hard for in Congress, which I think is a really important thing. It's special U.S. immigrant visas for Afghan citizens who help the U.S. military mission there. It has bipartisan support. Can you just talk about why that's so important to you, what the likelihood is that you can get it passed into law? Because, I mean, it's not the greatest history that we as a country have of remembering those who have helped us in past wars. I mean, when we left Vietnam in the way that the U.S. left, and with the quickness that it left, there were a lot of people who had worked for the U.S. government in difficult situations who were left behind. In Iraq, even though promises were made, getting visas for people who had been interpreters was something that was drawn out for many.
Yeah, so that's what the situation is in Afghanistan. I disagreed with the president's decision to leave, but it's made. And so we now look at there's 18,000 people in Afghanistan that worked with U.S. forces to work as translators and other things that in many cases actually died. But those that are still alive waiting these visas, they were done so with a promise that we will bring you to the United States of America. And what's happened over the last number of years is bureaucratic slowdown. There are 16,000 visas that were approved that haven't been fulfilled. And now we're going to be out of Afghanistan, in a month or two? And there's 18,000 people. Look, we know what's going to happen because we've seen it happen to a number of them already. They're going to be killed. Their families are going to be killed. And it's not just the humanitarian impact of that, which is tragic and obviously important, but when you even look at what the U.S.'s next conflict, we'll be in a war again sometime. How do you make a promise to the people there that you'll follow through on what you say?
Yeah. Congressman, I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Anytime.